I do have to ask you about one crazy story that you guys have been covering over at Bounding into Comics.
Yeah.
The British Psy-Op and the Acolyte. What the heck is this all about?
Okay.
So, talking about how well this might be at this time for her.
Let's just get down to the real question. John, has she lost her parking spot yet?
No.
Take it away.
She has not lost her parking spot until she has lost her parking spot, right?
Prius still stands.
So as far as I know, she's still the president of Lucasfilm. She's still making decisions. She seems to be going out there and talking to the press about their 3 Star Wars films that they're going to be making. She seems to have plans on what they're going to do with the Force and the Jedi and all of that stuff. It seems to be moving forward, at least in some kind of respect. They do have a plan for it as far as I've seen. But, time will tell. My personal wishes is that she should have been fired like 5 years ago after The Rise of Skywalker. But, she's still there as far as, she's not gone. We have rumors. I think there probably is something. I believe you guys when you say they had those meetings last week. At this point, she's still there. She's still president of Lucasfilm. She was literally out there, in France, promoting Indiana Jones. She's going to all the parties. So she's still there. She's still in charge.
And the word that we have out of those meetings, we've actually, we believe, found out what was decided, and that was that they're going to hold for 3 weeks before they make any kind of statement about the films. But they have pulled all marketing that was not pre-obligated. So anything that was not contractually required by the studio to fulfill everything else is gone. They've stripped out
finally
additional
won't
work.
see any more of those annoying Applebee's commercials.
Well, that actually comes through Fandango, so you could actually on that one, because Fandango bought those tickets, and they probably want to move those tickets rather than just let them sit there.
I will say, I watch a lot of stock car racing, and when I was watching that Chicago street race last week, that was every single commercial break there was an Applebee's commercial, and then they were also hitting it on. I have this app called Flow Racing, and you can watch a lot of short track racing around the country, and even in the commercial breaks there, I was getting the Applebee's commercial with Indiana Jones. So they were clearly going hard after, probably with NASCAR or stock car racing targeted people.
You mean that demographic that Kathleen Kennedy said that Lucasfilm no longer needed to cater to?
I guess so, but that was clear. They were clearly targeted. I think that's what they were doing there. Just from my kind of own previous experience with how, at least you do Facebook ads and how that is targeted, I would assume it's similar.
Well, why don't we go to something far more mundane and tell us about the crazy psyops around the world that are being funneled through Lucasfilm?
Yeah, let's talk about this Acolyte thing. So I want to hear this story, because I honestly, John, all candor, I am not familiar with this one. So please,
craziest headline I've ever seen, and to know that it's true because it came from Bounding into Comics is so funny.
Regale me with this one, please.
So this was actually one of our readers sent me a tip on this, and I guess someone had kind of done coverage on this a couple years ago. A website called The Gray Zone, which is a guy named Max Blumenthal, and I guess he's kind of a left-wing, seemingly a left-wing reporter, criticizes a lot of what's going on from a left-leaning perspective, I guess. And he basically uncovered a number of documents that this organization called Valiant was getting funding from Prince Charles at the time. He's now king. And the let's see here, if I had to pull it up with it was the Royal, I don't know, some organization that the UK funds, that created a program called Challenging Pseudoscience. And as part of their program, they hired this YouTuber named Oliver Thorne, who now calls himself, what does he call himself now? Abigail Thorne. And
sorry.
And she's reportedly was cast in the Acolyte, according to her agent's website. I forget what the website is. But now, all of a sudden, since our reporting, Thorne is no longer listed as being in the Acolyte on there.
Was wiped out.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on, but we have the archive. I know because I sent it to Jonas, and so so that's the latest, and I haven't really done anything. But basically, it was a COVID psyop that the UK government was running, was using this person's massive YouTube. he's like something called the Bread Tubers, which I guess they're like basically left-wing YouTubers that talk about philosophy or whatever. And they were trying to change people's minds on getting the shot. And they were
none of these topics will
to
get
make
us in
videos
trouble.
to do that.
None at all. I mean, we can go for something more mundane here. We can pull this one up. Wait, let me switch this around, and just go. The Katie Sackhoff bit. This is amazing to me. This is absolutely freaking amazing to me. Is that how do you spin?
About the time John started talking about bread tubers and King George, Valiant started to get a little sweat on the brow. He's like, I have no idea what Pro has done to me.
I'm sorry. I've got kids walking up to me right now asking me to open salsa jars. I'm like, are you kidding? Go away.
No, please. Wait.
Anyway, no, tell us about the article.
Yeah, the Katie Sackhoff one. So I guess she started a podcast on her own YouTube channel called Blah, Blah, Blah. And she had Bryce Dallas Howard on there. And they were basically it was just a regular, I guess, kind of inside like what they do. And they did discuss The Mandalorian, though, at one point towards the end of the interview. And she was basically admitting that the entire production is rushed. They don't really, they seemingly are just going on and like just constantly moving parts and everything like this. And then, I mean, she just kind of said it as like a brief comment, but then she also was talking about how their budget for the catering is just bigger than Battlestar Galactica. And I thought it was interesting because we don't really have an inside look at what the production is, but we are starting to get some more information about this. And we had Emily Swallow actually did an interview earlier this year with Discussing Film, talking about how they're actually filming they have two big sets going at the same time. So they're filming like episode 3 at the same time they're filming episode 6. And Jon Favreau is trying to keep everything like coordinated and everything like this, but you've got different directors working different episodes at the same time and all of that stuff. And you only get to use the certain sets a certain number of days because they're so expensive before they move on to the next set or whatever, is how she was saying. And to me, it made perfect sense to me because it explained why when you got to that penultimate episode where they land on Mandalore, when Katie Sackhoff lands on Mandalore, and she clearly has they're trying to make it seem like she's just been there, and it's like, yo, she was there in episode 2, like she already knew all this stuff, and then she was like, I don't even remember where any of this stuff is anymore, but she knew where everything was in episode 2, so that I think that kind of made sense to me, is how they were just kind of all rushing it all together, and they don't really have anyone kind of overseeing what actually is supposedly supposed to happen between the different episodes.
Nice.
But I think it's just more evidence of this show. It's just kind of a mess.
A bloated mess, yeah.
And they just spend a ton of money, and they're just throwing money at it.
If I could say something. Shooting out of order is not unusual, but scripts are done in advance and for longer shows, right? 20 episodes, 24 episodes. It's very rare that you're shooting in order. It just shows the, disorganization of whether who that UPN is, script supervisor, continuity. I mean, these are all things that could be easily solved. But also, too, backing up what John says, in Hollywood, Burn It All Down, that book that came out. I don't know if you got to check that out, John.
I haven't.
Some great points. I mean, she's obviously she's a hardcore lefty, but from that point of view, it's like one of their own bringing them down on a lot of points. And one in regards to Lucasfilm, there's a few paragraphs on this, is that their budgets, they had no oversight on budgets, bro.
No, it seems pretty clear.
They literally spent whatever they wanted to. That was like the line in one of the paragraphs. And I forgot the author's name, but she did her journalism. She got her facts down. So yeah,
it goes to show, Polly, that Kathleen Kennedy is both a terrible artistic director. She is also a terrible business director of Lucasfilm. She has both domains completely out of control.
It does seem like they did have a budget, at least for Andor, because Tony Gilroy said in a couple interviews that he kept it below budget, but his budget was $250 million. So there's that.
It seems to me that they were very independent and ran it differently, obviously. also too, they had their own sets, and the 24 episodes they're already written. You know, they shot the first 12 of wherever it was, but you can tell in the vision of the show, whether you liked it or not, boring or not, that's a whole different argument. But they had a clear vision and guts to that show, which none of these other shows have.
But as far as the rest of this goes, I kind of want to get. I know y'all were talking about this, but I look. I don't know where this Kennedy thing is going to wind up. I'll be clear. I do not think that, you know, even if there's a meeting tomorrow that she's walking out the door, she's getting fired. Kathleen Kennedy is not going to be fired. She is going to be allowed to run the course of her contract, which at this point, the natural expiration is October 1st of next year. If she leaves earlier, it's going to be because of a mutually agreed upon accord between Disney, Bob Iger, the board, Alan Bergman et al., and Kathleen Kennedy, and she is going to be paid and rewarded handsomely for stepping away earlier. If they fire her,
golden parachute, right?
Exactly. It's going to cost them just as much, if not more, to actually fire her, to pay her contract out. And then, of course, you'd get all of the craziness that would ensue from it. I've been very consistent on this on YouTube since the first day I've been on here almost, and that is that she will not get fired. She will be celebrated. She will probably, if anything, if they're going to retire her early, I think it's going to be somewhere around Hollywood Awards season. Because I've been saying for 2 years, they're going to march her out on stage at the Academy Awards, at the Oscars. She's going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award. She's going to be celebrated. She's going to be getting all these kind of accolades. It's going to be a very glorious thing. Now, could they behind the scenes remove power from her ahead of time?
Well,
sure.
They don't have to, because the writer's strike is shutting everything down.
Exactly.
She literally cannot do anything.
That's where that's kind of where I was going with
she's just stuck.
Yeah. There's not much going on. What do they have in development right now?
I don't know if I agree with you two. I mean,
Holly, how dare you? No.
She's not stuck. She sent Lucasfilm with this last movie down a black hole, guys.
Oh, I just mean she's stuck in terms.
Let me finish.
Yeah, go for it.
Please, thank you. Stuck is assuming that, you know, there's a pause. It's not her fault. You know, she's okay. She's not stuck. She's taking everyone down. She's taking this whole thing down. This is probably going to be, when you guys have you guys are the experts here, the biggest flop in Hollywood history. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you could say she's stuck. I don't see her. I see this as a huge coffin nail, guys. How she's gonna exit, I don't care. This is horrible. This is beyond horrible, guys.
I agree with everything you just said.
I just mean she's stuck in that she cannot continue to develop the Rey movie and these other films that she wants to do because everything's going to be on pause. So she can't do further damage, although her damage already is spectacularly impressive in all the worst ways.
Yeah, from a functional standpoint, she's at a standstill right now, you know, and it's just, what do you do?
So yeah, but that's Hollywood. That's Hollywood. Everyone is like so, but there's still shit going on, like movies coming out. Mm-hmm. This is huge news, guys.
Yeah.
As far as
she's got nothing in post production anymore. That's just it. There's
that's all in that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was some of the delineation between, you know, when Disney not long ago sent out legal statements, let's call it, to their writers and their showrunners saying that, hey, look, we understand there's a strike going on, but if you're a showrunner, we still expect you to perform showrunner duties. So this was some of the question, like particularly we talked about the Acolyte earlier, right? The Acolyte was one of those productions that just kind of hit that line where they finished principal photography on schedule from everything we saw that happened in the beginning of May. I just had some commercial go off in my ear. Anyway, the Acolyte finished that production in early May, and I think the writer's strike began a week or two later. And people were asking, well, how is Leslye Headland still working on this show? Well, because by that point, the show had finished principal photography. All that was done. It was now going into post-production. She was there to oversee editing, VFX, CGI, just showrunner work, right? So she was expected to still perform her duties to complete post-production on Acolyte because, again, that's going to be one of the few shows the Walt Disney Company actually has to put on Disney Plus come next year, because anything else that wasn't at least at that point of completed principal photography or beyond when the writer's strike started, and now we've got, as Paulie mentioned, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, might join in the fray, then they're dead for a year.
Renegade.